Megan lives a normal life in New York City, and in her mid-30s, she dreamed of sharing her life with someone, of finding a partner to follow her adventures. She has always been a big dreamer, and since she was a child, she persisted in making her dreams come true little by little. She wanted to follow her father's career and thus became a recognized lawyer, working in a large office in the city. Megan was professionally fulfilled, but she knew that one of her biggest dreams was to find a life partner. After many failed attempts, she decided to try something different. She decided to create a profile on a dating app, thinking that maybe that way she could find someone who was more compatible with her personality and lifestyle. She interacted with some people until one day she was browsing the app and saw a profile that really caught her attention. He was a handsome, elegant man who liked to cook and seemed to have many friends. It was the perfect combo, just what Megan needed. The man's name was Daniel, and he also owned a beautiful dog, which attracted her even more. She liked his profile and got a response right away with a message from Daniel. They started talking and spent the whole night exchanging messages and audios without noticing the time passing. The next day, they exchanged pictures and kept talking. It seemed like they had a lifelong conversation. After a few days, they finally set up a first date. It was a Friday night, and they had arranged to meet at a bar downtown to drink and play pool. Megan was very excited as she was very attached to Daniel. They had developed a bond that, even though it was through messages, it was more intense than her previous relationships, so she had high expectations. When she arrived at the bar, she looked stunning. She had done her best to impress Daniel. She sat at the counter and ordered a drink to wait for him, looking at her cell phone. A few minutes later, he arrived, handsome and smelling just like Megan imagined, but much more attractive than the pictures. His walk, his gaze, everything about him attracted her intensely. He walked over, and Megan's heart was racing as they shook hands. They both smiled and started talking as if they had known each other for a long time. He wanted to know every detail of her life. Everything about her was interesting to Daniel. They played pool and had a great time. They spent the night together and began a relationship that for Megan seemed like a fairy tale. Daniel was thoughtful, caring, always very romantic, showing through small and large gestures how much he was in love with Megan. In the third month of dating, on Megan's mother's birthday, she and Daniel drove to her parents' farm where the birthday party was going to take place. Megan came from a very rich and traditional family. Many people knew the patriarchs and matriarchs of the family, who owned several companies throughout the region, such as supermarkets, bakeries, and gas stations. There were many people present, and everyone was very elegant, wearing very expensive jewelry and accessories, in addition to the millionaire cars that were parked as the guests arrived. Daniel and Megan left their belongings in the locker and sat at a table with some of Megan's relatives. He decided to leave to go to the bathroom, and Megan continued talking animatedly, not paying much attention to his actions. After a long time, Daniel came back and said he was talking to Megan's cousin. Later, they were in the car driving home, and Daniel was acting strange. He was quiet and not as lively and friendly as usual, which bothered Megan. She asked what was wrong, and he said he was tired and worried about problems at work. The next day, Megan's mother called her daughter in the morning in tears saying that her father's old watch had been stolen. The watch was worth more than $800,000 and was kept inside the house. They were desperate, not knowing how to deal with that situation, as it was almost impossible to know who could commit this crime. Which of the guests would be able to steal that watch without anyone noticing in the middle of the party? Megan decided to tell Daniel what happened to try to find out who would be behind that theft. Daniel looked worried, but didn't want to talk about it too much. She suspected, because after the birthday party, Daniel didn't seem to be the same anymore. That same evening, Daniel said he needed to talk to Megan. They started talking, and he said that he needed to end the relationship, that it wasn't what he wanted, that he felt very out of place with Megan and her family, and that he needed some time for himself. So he was going to move in with his aunt and uncle in another state. Megan, who was already worried about her father's watch being stolen, was further shaken by Daniel's sudden breakup. She didn't imagine that he could be so cold at that moment, when she needed him the most. He took some of his stuff from Megan's house and left. Almost a year later, the young woman was still mourning Daniel's departure. She believed that he was her great love. She still had hopes of having a beautiful relationship with him if they got together again. Day and night, she dreamt of meeting him. When one day she received a message from her friend Allison, whom she had just met at the gym. Allison, who was traveling along the coast, said she met a perfect, rich, handsome man who seemed to have come out of her dreams. She said that they started chatting through the relationship app at the beginning of the trip, and they met a few times, but she was already very enchanted by him. She said his name was Ian. Megan was happy for her friend, encouraging her to enjoy the trip and Ian's company. Her friend sent a photo of Ian, and Megan almost dropped her cell phone on the floor, shook by what she saw. Daniel was in the picture. Ian was a fake name, and the worst part is that he was wearing her father's watch. Megan didn't know what to do. She had a mixture of feelings of anger, sadness, confusion, but she knew she needed to take action. She sent a message to her friend saying that Ian was called Daniel, that he was her old boyfriend who had broken up with her all of a sudden and disappeared from the map shortly after the theft that her family suffered. Megan said that after looking at the picture, she was finally aware that Daniel was the one responsible for that crime. Allison was perplexed and very angry with all that, and decided to plan with Megan some way to get the watch back and prevent this man from committing other crimes using women. They came up with a plan to get Daniel drunk, get the watch, and then meet up again to gather information, images, and videos that would prove his guilt in the theft. The following night, Allison followed through with the plan and arranged to meet Daniel at the bar. They started drinking and went to Daniel's house to end the night. As planned, Allison pretended to be drinking, causing him to drink a lot more and pass out on the couch. She searched the house and found the watch, getting out of there as quickly as possible while Daniel was asleep. She returned to New York to find her friend and return the stolen watch. They hugged and started talking to elaborate the total exposure of that man through the internet. They gathered all photos, videos, and writings about the scam Daniel had pulled on Megan and likely planned to pull off on Allison using a fake name. They published the dossier on every website that was possible. The post caused a lot of repercussions, and several other women who had also been deceived by Daniel, appeared, causing the news to spread quickly across the country. Together, all the women denounced Daniel, gathering a large amount of evidence, and, after some time, he was finally arrested. Who could imagine such a turn of events? That Megan, in addition to getting her father's watch back, would help catch a major scammer. If you know any similar stories, write about it in the comments, like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more fantastic stories.